aliens abandoned a wrecked warship on Earth. Humanity turned it into their ultimate weapon. Before they leave, confused, subscribe if you think the mystery of humanity is the power itself. Enjoy the story. The morning sky over the Canadian Rockies burned like molten copper as something impossible streaked across the heavens. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the helicopter window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched the smoking trail that carved a wound through the clouds. 3 hours ago, every satellite in North America had screamed warnings about an unidentified object moving at impossible speeds. Now she was racing toward what might be humanity's first real proof that we weren't alone in this vast, cold universe. 50,000 feet above Earth's surface, Admiral Thex 9 felt his ship, the Void Whisper, dying around him like a wounded animal. The pride of the Zephyrian fleet, a vessel that had explored distant galaxies and made first contact with 6 different alien species, was now little more than a tomb hurtling toward an unknown world. Craven weapons had torn through his shields like they were paper, and the quantum core that powered their faster-than-light drive was failing catastrophically. "Sir, main engines are completely offline," his chief engineer reported, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Hull breaches on levels 3 through 7. Life support is failing across the ship." Thex 9 closed his 4 eyes, feeling the weight of command crushing down on him. In his 50 years of service, he had never lost a ship. Now he was about to lose not just his vessel, but potentially expose Zephyrian technology to a primitive species that barely understood fire. "Set course for the 3rd planet," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Prepare for emergency crash landing." The 3rd planet was a blue-green world that his people had marked as strategically unimportant during their last survey. The beings there were primitives who still used chemical rockets to reach their own moon. They would be perfect witnesses to watch his ship die, but they would never understand what they were seeing. At least that's what he told himself as the Void Whisper screamed through Earth's atmosphere. The ship's crystalline hull, forged from quantum crystalline metal that could repair itself under normal conditions, glowed white-hot as atmospheric friction tore at its surface. Through the viewing screen, Thex 9 could see vast forests of green trees rushing up to meet them like an emerald sea. "Brace for impact!" he shouted over the growing roar of atmospheric entry. The Void Whisper hit the Canadian wilderness like a hammer striking an anvil. Ancient trees that had stood for centuries snapped like matchsticks as the massive vessel, over 1,000 feet long and 300 feet wide, carved a 10-mile trench through the forest. It slid across valleys and through hills, leaving a scar of destruction that would be visible from space for decades. When the ship finally came to rest in a valley surrounded by snow-capped peaks, the silence was deafening. Emergency lighting cast eerie blue shadows on walls that still pulsed with faint energy, the quantum crystals in the hull desperately trying to repair damage that was beyond their capabilities. Admiral Thex 9 pulled himself from his command chair, his body aching from the impact. Around him, his crew of 20 Zephyrians worked frantically at their stations, but he could see the truth in their eyes. The Void Whisper would never fly again. "Status report," he commanded, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. His chief engineer, a brilliant scientist named Keth 7, looked up from his damage assessment with tears in his 4 eyes. "Sir, the quantum core is cracked beyond any possibility of repair. The gravity field generators are completely destroyed. The navigation computer has been wiped clean. Even if we had access to a full orbital shipyard, we couldn't fix this level of damage." Thex 9 nodded grimly. He had expected as much. The Craven Collective's weapons were designed specifically to disable Zephyrian technology, and they had done their job with ruthless efficiency. "What about the self-destruct?" he asked. Keth 7's expression grew even more grim. "I can activate it, sir, but with the power system so heavily damaged, I can only achieve about 30% effectiveness. It will destroy some of the sensitive systems, but not the ship itself." Thex 9 thought about this carefully. 30% would have to be enough. Even if some technology survived the destruction, what could these primitive humans possibly do with it? They still used fossil fuels for energy and had barely mastered nuclear physics. They would look at Zephyrian technology the way ancient humans might have looked at a computer, with wonder, but no understanding. "Do it," he ordered. We cannot leave our technology for these primitives to find, even if they couldn't possibly understand it. As his engineer worked to activate the partial self-destruct, Thex-9 walked through his dying ship one last time. The Void Whisper had been his home for 15 years. He had explored distant galaxies in this vessel, discovering new worlds, and making contact with species that had never seen the stars beyond their own systems. Now it would end its days as scrap metal on a backward planet whose inhabitants didn't even know they weren't alone in the universe. The ship's corridors were dark except for the emergency lighting. Many sections were completely without power, their quantum crystals finally exhausted. In the science laboratories, delicate instruments that could measure the thoughts of subatomic particles lay broken on the floor. The medical bay was flooded with coolant from broken pipes, its healing chambers that could repair almost any injury now silent and dark. 3 hours later, rescue arrived in the form of the Star's Edge, another Zephyrian vessel commanded by Captain Vel 12. As Thex-9 prepared to evacuate his crew, he made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Sir Keth-7 said, as they gathered in the transport bay, "Should we attempt to remove the quantum core, even damaged it contains technology these beings should never possess." Thex-9 looked at the massive device. The core was the size of a small building and weighed thousands of tons. It would take days to remove safely, and the primitive humans might discover them before they finished. No, he decided. The self-destruct damaged it significantly. Even if they find it, they will never understand how it works. Let us go. One by one, his crew transported to the rescue ship. Thex-9 was the last to leave, taking one final look around his command center. "Goodbye, old friend," he whispered to his ship. But the Void Whisper was not truly alone. High above Earth's atmosphere, a network of human satellites had tracked every moment of the alien vessel's dramatic arrival. Military bases around the world had scrambled to analyze the trajectory and impact site. And in a classified facility buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Dr. Sarah Chen was already assembling a team that would prove Admiral Thex-9's assumptions catastrophically wrong. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the alien ship's main corridor, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Emergency lighting cast an ethereal blue glow over walls that seemed to pulse with life. The ship was enormous, over 1,000 feet long, and clearly built by a civilization that had mastered technologies humanity could barely imagine. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this," called Dr. James Rodriguez from deeper in the ship. She followed him to a chamber at the vessel's heart where something incredible waited. A device the size of a school bus sat in the center of the room, its crystalline structure cracked but still pulsing with soft light. Even damaged, it radiated a power that made the air itself feel electric. "It's the ship's engine," Rodriguez explained, "but it doesn't work like anything we've ever seen. No fuel, no moving parts. It manipulates gravity itself." Sarah stared at the quantum core, understanding that she was looking at technology that could change everything. Faster than light travel. Clean, unlimited energy. The ability to reach the stars. Over the following weeks, teams of scientists arrived from around the world. They built a base around the crashed ship and began the painstaking work of understanding alien technology that was centuries ahead of human achievement. The ship's computers were partially functional, and human programmers slowly decoded the Zephyrian language. They learned about the Galactic Council, a confederation of species that had ruled space for millennia. They discovered the Craven Collective, a warrior race that conquered worlds and enslaved civilizations. But most importantly, they found the ship's assessment of Earth in its databases, backward world of no strategic importance, inhabitants too primitive to pose any threat. Sarah felt anger burning in her chest as she read those words. The aliens had crashed on Earth and abandoned their technology without even considering what humans might do with it. They thought humans were too stupid to understand it. "They're wrong," she told General Marcus Webb during their weekly briefing. "We can learn from this technology. We can build on it. We can make it better." "You're talking about reverse engineering technology that's thousands of years beyond our current capabilities," the general replied. "Even if we could understand it." "Then we'll learn," Sarah interrupted. "And if we can't fix it exactly as it was, we'll build it better. I'm requesting authorization for Project Lazarus." General Webb studied the alien ship through the briefing room window. The task seemed impossible, but Americans had done impossible things before. From first flight to the moon in 66 years, from vacuum tubes to quantum computers in 50. "What do you need?" he asked. Sarah smiled. "The best minds on Earth and the belief that humans can do anything if they put their minds to it." 6 months after the crash, the alien ship's engineering bay looked like the world's most advanced laboratory crossed with a construction site. Human equipment sat alongside alien technology that still defied every law of physics humanity thought they understood. Dr. Rodriguez wiped grease from his hands as he explained their breakthrough to Sarah. The gravity drive crystals create quantum fields that make the ship lighter than air, not by pushing against anything, but by actually changing how gravity affects mass itself. "That's impossible," said Dr. Lisa Park, their materials expert. "No, it's just really, really advanced," Rodriguez replied. "The problem is these crystals are made from elements that don't exist on Earth. We can't synthesize them with our current technology." Sarah felt her heart sinking. If they couldn't build the crystals, they couldn't rebuild the drive. But Dr. Park smiled. "I didn't say we couldn't build a gravity drive. I said we couldn't build their gravity drive." She led them to a workstation where a strange device hummed quietly, a combination of alien crystals and human superconductors wrapped in Earth's most advanced materials. "I took their basic design and modified it," Park explained. "Instead of using impossible crystals, I used our best superconductors arranged in the same pattern. The effect isn't as strong, but it's controllable. And because we understand the human components, we can modify it in real time." This was the breakthrough Sarah had been hoping for. They didn't need to copy alien technology exactly, they could use human engineering to make it better. Dr. Michael Park, their computer specialist, had made similar progress with the ship's AI systems. "The alien computers are incredible," he explained, "but they think so differently from humans that we can barely communicate with them. So I built a hybrid system, human programming interfaces with alien processing power." He demonstrated by asking the hybrid computer to design an improved gravity drive. Within seconds, the screen showed detailed plans for a device that combined alien principles with human innovation, creating something more advanced than either species had built alone. In the medical bay, Dr. Emily Watson was doing the same thing with alien healing technology, creating hybrid devices that used alien scanning with human medical knowledge. Throughout the ship, human engineers were studying alien weapons and designing better human versions. But the most important work was happening on the bridge where Commander Lisa Jiang was creating control systems that humans could actually use. "The alien controls are completely wrong for humans," she explained. "They were designed for beings with 4 arms and brains that work differently than ours." She gestured to the bridge around them, which now looked like the cockpit of an advanced human aircraft. "We keep the alien systems for power and speed, but we add human interfaces for control. The aliens designed their ship to work perfectly. Humans designed things to be flexible." Sarah was amazed by what her team had accomplished, but she was also worried. The work was happening faster than expected, and that was attracting attention. General Webb found her in the ship's laboratory with troubling news. "Satellite images show other governments building bases near our perimeter. The Chinese have 300 troops 50 miles south. The Russians have a research team 100 miles north. Worse," he continued, "our radio telescopes have detected signals from deep space. Someone is trying to contact Earth." Sarah felt ice in her veins. "The aliens? We think so. The signal started 3 days ago. If they're coming here, it could be weeks or months." Sarah made a decision that would change everything. "We need to speed up the project. I want teams working 24 hours a day. We need this ship flying before the aliens arrive." 3 years had passed since the Void Whisper fell from the stars, and the ship that had once been the pride of the Zephyrian fleet now bore a new name painted in bold letters across its transformed hull, Terra's Wrath. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation platform they had built overlooking the launch facility in the Nevada desert, watching her life's work prepare for the test that would determine humanity's future among the stars. The broken alien vessel had been completely transformed through the most ambitious engineering project in human history. The hull still retained its organic flowing design, but human modifications were visible everywhere. Sensor arrays based on Earth technology, dotted the surface like electronic scales. The engines were now a hybrid system that combined alien gravity manipulation with human fusion drives, creating propulsion capabilities that exceeded anything either species had achieved alone. Most importantly, the ship now bristled with weapons that had never existed in the original Zephyrian design. Human military engineers working from principles they had learned by studying alien energy systems had created weapons that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. "Final systems check," announced Commander Lisa Zhang from the ship's bridge, her voice carrying across the communication network to every station in the facility. "Navigation systems online and responding perfectly," reported Lieutenant Tom Mitchell from the pilot station. The navigation controls looked nothing like the original four-dimensional alien displays that had been incomprehensible to human minds. Instead, the humans had created an interface that any Earth pilot could understand intuitively, using three-dimensional holographic displays that showed spatial relationships in ways human brains could process instantly. Gravity drive showing green across all indicators, called Chief Engineer James Rodriguez from the engine room. The gravity drive represented their greatest achievement, not a copy of the alien original, but a human interpretation that was more stable, more controllable, and more powerful than anything the Zephyrians had built. "Weapon systems ready and standing by," added Commander Sarah Kim from the tactical station. The ship's armament was purely human in design energy cannons that used alien power sources, but human targeting systems creating weapons that could adjust their output and targeting parameters in real time during combat. "Life support nominal across all decks," reported Dr. Emily Watson from the medical station. Even the life support systems had been redesigned specifically for human physiology, incorporating alien efficiency with human redundancy and safety protocols. Sarah watched from the ground as her creation prepared to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. They had built the launch facility in the remote Nevada desert, far from civilian populations and curious eyes. Around the platform, hundreds of engineers and technicians monitored every system, their faces tense with anticipation. General Webb stood beside her, his expression nervous despite months of successful testing. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Sarah? We could run additional computer simulations, test individual systems more thoroughly." "We've run every simulation our computers can handle," Sarah replied, her eyes fixed on the ship that represented 3 years of impossible work. "But simulations can't tell us how all the hybrid systems will interact under real flight conditions. At some point, we have to take the leap and trust in human engineering." The general nodded, but Sarah could see his concern. If the test flight failed catastrophically, they might lose everything they had worked for. Worse, they might lose the crew that had volunteered for this historic mission. But they were running out of time faster than anyone wanted to admit. The alien signals from deep space were getting stronger every day, and analysis suggested that multiple ships were approaching Earth. They would arrive within months, possibly weeks. "Terra's Wrath, you are cleared for launch," Sarah announced into her headset, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Inside the ship, Commander Zhang felt her heart racing with excitement and terror in equal measure. She had flown every type of aircraft the human military possessed, from experimental fighters to space shuttles, but this was completely different. This ship could travel faster than light itself. It could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. It represented everything humanity hoped to become. "Beginning launch sequence," she announced to her crew. "All stations report readiness." The gravity drive activated with a low hum that seemed to vibrate through reality itself, a sound like the universe itself was singing. Around the ship, dust and small rocks began to float upward as the local gravitational field shifted and bent according to human will. Dr. Rodriguez watched his instrument displays with the intensity of a man whose life's work was being tested. "Gravity field generation stable and responsive. All quantum field parameters within acceptable ranges. Ready for liftoff." Commander Zhang engaged the primary flight controls, and Terra's Wrath rose smoothly from the launch pad as silently as a bird taking flight. This was completely unlike human rockets, which roared and shook as they fought against gravity with brute force. The Terra's Wrath simply made gravity irrelevant, rising into the sky as if it belonged there. "Looking beautiful from down here," Sarah reported, watching her ship climb toward space. all telemetry showing nominal performance across every system. The ship climbed rapidly through Earth's atmosphere, its hybrid systems working in perfect harmony. Within minutes, they were in space, looking down at the blue marble of Earth floating in the cosmic void. "It's magnificent," whispered Lieutenant Mitchell, who had seen Earth from space before in conventional spacecraft. But somehow this felt completely different. They weren't visitors to space anymore, they belonged here. "Beginning faster than light systems test," Commander Jang announced, her voice carrying both excitement and the weight of responsibility. This was the moment of truth. The faster-than-light drive was the most complex system on the ship, requiring the gravity-drive quantum computers and navigation systems to work together with perfect precision. Dr. Rodriguez monitored the systems with the care of a surgeon performing brain surgery. Quantum field generators online and stable. Gravity wave manipulators ready and responding. Navigation computer has calculated a test jump to the edge of the solar system and back. Ground control authorizes FTL test. Sarah's voice came from Earth. Godspeed Terra's wrath. Commander Jang took a deep breath and engaged the faster-than-light drive. Reality twisted around the ship like a cosmic kaleidoscope. For a moment that lasted an eternity, the stars seemed to stretch into infinite lines of light, and the crew felt themselves existing between heartbeats. Then suddenly, they were somewhere else entirely. The sun was now just another star in the distance, barely visible among thousands of others. "Jump successful!" Lieutenant Mitchell shouted, his voice filled with awe and triumph. "We're 8 billion miles from Earth. The trip took less than a second. We just traveled further and faster than any human being in history." Inside the ship, the crew stared at their displays in amazement that bordered on religious experience. They had just accomplished something that human scientists had said was impossible for centuries. But more than that, they had done it in a ship they had built themselves using human ingenuity combined with alien knowledge. "Return jump in 30 seconds, Commander Jang announced, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what they had accomplished. The second jump brought them back to Earth orbit, where the planet looked exactly the same, but everything had changed forever. Humanity was no longer trapped on one world, no longer limited to one small corner of an infinite universe. "Terra's wrath to ground control." Commander Jang reported, her voice filled with quiet pride. "All systems performed beyond expectations. We are ready for extended flight testing and, if necessary, combat operations." On the ground, Sarah felt tears running down her cheeks as she watched her ship return from its first faster-than-light journey. They had done it. They had taken broken alien technology and transformed it into something purely human, something that would change the course of galactic history. But the celebration was interrupted by General Webb receiving an urgent communication during the landing procedures. His face went pale as he read the message. "Sarah, you need to see this immediately," he said, handing her the tablet. The message was from the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Australia. They had detected multiple objects approaching the solar system at faster-than-light speeds, using propulsion signatures that matched Zephyrian technology. Analysis of the energy patterns suggested they were warships. How many? Sarah asked, though. She dreaded the answer. At least 12 ships, possibly more. They'll reach Earth within days. Sarah looked up at Terra's wrath as it settled onto the landing pad with the grace of a falling leaf. One ship against 12 or more. Under normal circumstances, the odds would be impossible. But then she remembered something crucial. The aliens were coming to reclaim what they thought was their own broken ship. They had no idea what they were really flying into. They expected to find primitive humans cowering over technology they couldn't understand. Instead, they would find something that had never existed before in galactic history, a ship built with alien technology and human determination, crewed by a species that had turned the galaxy's gift into their own salvation. The real test was about to begin, and humanity would finally get the chance to show the universe exactly what they were capable of when pushed to their limits. Admiral Thex 9 stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Star Destroyer Vengeance, studying sensor readings that made absolutely no sense according to everything he knew about the primitive species called humans. His fleet of 12 Zephyrian warships had come to the Sol system to collect the wreckage of the Void, Whisper expecting to find broken technology scattered across a primitive world whose inhabitants barely understood fire. Instead, his most advanced instruments were detecting active quantum field manipulations emanating from the crash site energy signatures that looked suspiciously like a fully operational Zephyrian vessel, but with power readings 40% higher than any ship in his fleet. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the planet." His communication officer reported, her voice uncertain. "They are hailing us on standard Galactic Council frequencies." Thex-9 felt his blood temperature drop several degrees. Primitive species didn't know about Galactic Council communication protocols, let alone have the technology to use them. "Put it through," he ordered. The main screen filled with the image of a human female wearing what appeared to be a military uniform of some kind. Thex-9 had studied human appearance as part of his mission briefing, but seeing one in person was still disturbing. They looked so young and fragile, like children, playing with tools they couldn't possibly understand. "This is Commander Lisa Jang of the Earth Defense Force ship Terra's Wrath," the human said with a calm confidence that made Thex-9's skin crawl. "You are entering protected space without authorization. Please state your intentions and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Thex-9 was too shocked to speak for several moments. These primitive humans were not only challenging his authority, they were demanding that he submit to inspection. The audacity was beyond anything he had encountered in 50 years of space service. "I am Admiral Thex-9 of the Zephyrian Star Navy," he finally replied, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We are here to recover stolen property. The ship you call Terra's Wrath belongs to the Zephyrian Republic and will be returned immediately." Commander Jang smiled, and something about that expression reminded Thex-9. I stay. 9 uncomfortably of the way Craven warriors looked just before they attacked. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Admiral," she said with infuriating calm. "The ship you abandoned on our world was considered salvage under Article 15 of the Galactic Salvage Convention. We have invested considerable resources in its restoration and improvement. It now belongs to Earth under established interstellar law." "You dare cite galactic law to me?" Thex-9 shouted, his composure finally cracking. "You are primitives. You have no rights under galactic law. You have no standing to own technology you cannot possibly understand." "Cannot understand?" Commander Jang's smile became wider and more predatory. "Admiral, perhaps you should take a closer look at what we've done with your superior technology." Terra's Wrath suddenly appeared on Thex-9's tactical displays, having moved from the far side of Earth to directly in front of his fleet in what appeared to be an instantaneous transition. The maneuver was physically impossible. No ship could accelerate that quickly without reducing its crew to subatomic particles. "How did they accomplish that transition?" his pilot whispered, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. Thex-9 studied the ship on his screen with growing alarm. It still retained the basic hull configuration of the Void Whisper, but everything else had been changed. The surface gleamed with armor that incorporated materials he didn't recognize. Strange weapons configurations dotted the hull like geometric patterns. Most disturbing of all, the energy readings were unlike anything in his experience. The ship was generating power levels that exceeded his flagship by a significant margin. "Sir," his science officer reported, her voice shaking slightly, "I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies around their vessel. Somehow they've not only repaired our gravity drive system, they've improved it. The efficiency readings are 3 times higher than our best ships." Thex-9 felt his understanding of the universe beginning to crumble. These humans had not just repaired his crashed ship, they had somehow made it better than anything the Zephyrian Republic had ever built. "Admiral," Commander Jang's voice came through the speakers with mock sympathy, "I'm going to give you one chance to withdraw peacefully from our territory. Leave our solar system immediately, and we'll consider this an unfortunate misunderstanding." "You threaten me?" Thex-9 could barely control his rage and fear. "I command 12 ships of the line. You have 1 modified salvage vessel. Quality over quantity," Commander Jang replied with that same infuriating calm. "But you're certainly welcome to test that theory if you'd like a practical demonstration." Thex-9 cut the communication channel and turned to his fleet commanders on the secondary screens. "All ships prepare for immediate combat operations. We will destroy that vessel and teach these primitives their proper place in the galactic order." But as his ships moved into their standard attack formation, Thex-9 noticed something that made his blood freeze in his veins. The 12 orbital platforms he had detected around Earth were repositioning themselves with mechanical precision, creating overlapping fields of fire that would cover his entire fleet. Even more concerning, his sensors were detecting energy buildup that suggested the platforms were charging weapons far more powerful than anything his ships carried. "Sir." His tactical officer reported, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "The orbital platforms are targeting our vessels. Their weapons appear to be modified versions of our own energy cannons, but the power readings are completely off our measurement scales." "How much more powerful?" Thex 9 demanded. "Sir, each platform appears to be carrying weapons that could destroy one of our ships with a single coordinated volley." Thex 9 stared at the tactical display showing his fleet surrounded by weapons that could annihilate them. One ship and 12 platforms against his fleet of 12 vessels. The odds had seemed overwhelmingly in his favor when they arrived. Now, he wasn't certain they could survive the engagement. "Begin the attack," he ordered anyway, his pride refusing to let him retreat without firing a shot. "Target the lone ship first. Concentrate all fire." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with energy weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy. 12 ships unleashed beams of concentrated destruction that could reduce mountains to vapor. The combined firepower lashed out at Terra's wrath like the anger of gods, and bounced harmlessly off the ship's shields like rain hitting a window. "Impossible!" Thex 9 shouted, staring at his weapons display in disbelief. "Our energy cannons can destroy anything. Nothing can withstand that level of concentrated firepower." "Sir," his science officer reported, her voice shaking with something approaching terror. "Their defensive systems appear to be some kind of layered configuration. It looks like they've combined our shield technology with something entirely new. Admiral, I think their shields are somehow absorbing our energy attacks and using that power to strengthen their own defensive matrix." "What do you mean they're getting stronger?" "Sir, I believe their defensive systems are converting our weapons fire into additional power for their shields. The more we shoot at them, the stronger their defenses become." Before Thex 9 could process this impossible information, Terra's wrath returned fire. The human weapons were unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered in centuries of space warfare. Instead of the focused energy beams that galactic civilization had used for millennia, the humans fired what appeared to be packets of contained plasma that exploded with tremendous force, creating secondary effects that tore through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. The first volley destroyed 2 Zephyrian ships instantly, their hulls cracking open like eggs and spilling atmosphere and crew into the vacuum of space. "Evasive maneuvers!" Thex 9 shouted over the growing alarm signals. "All ships' emergency evasive patterns." But Terra's wrath was moving in ways that defied every law of physics the Zephyrians understood. The ship appeared in one location and instantly translated to another position without crossing the intervening space. It struck from impossible angles, firing from positions that should have been geometrically impossible. Within minutes, 4 more Zephyrian ships were destroyed or crippled beyond repair, their crews either dead or desperately trying to escape in life pods. "Sir, we have to retreat immediately," his tactical officer shouted over the chaos of alarms and damage reports. "We're being systematically destroyed." "No," Thex 9 screamed back. "We outnumber them, continue the attack, all ships maintain formation, and concentrate fire." But his problems were just beginning. The orbital platforms around Earth opened fire with weapons that made Zephyrian energy cannons look like children's toys. Beams of coherent energy that could have powered entire star systems lashed out from the platforms, each shot precisely targeted and devastating in its effects. 3 more Zephyrian ships disappeared in brilliant explosions that briefly outshone the local star. "Sir, we've lost 9 ships," his communication officer reported, his voice barely audible over the sounds of his ship's systems failing around them. "The remaining vessels are requesting immediate permission to withdraw." Thex 9 looked at his tactical display in complete disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, his fleet had been reduced from 12 ships to 3 barely functional vessels. The primitives had done the impossible. They had outfought the Zephyrian Star Navy using technology that was supposedly inferior to his own. "How?" he whispered to himself. His science officer looked up from her instrument panel with an expression of pure terror. Sir, I've been analyzing their tactical patterns throughout the engagement. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered before. What do you mean? Sir, most galactic species fight defensively. They try to minimize casualties, preserve their ships, and retreat when they take significant damage. But these humans, they're fighting to win regardless of the cost to themselves. Their ship has taken damage that would force any rational commander to withdraw, but they keep attacking with even greater intensity. Thex 9 looked at Terra's wrath on his tactical display. The ship was indeed damaged. He could see hull breaches and power fluctuations, but instead of retreating to safety, the human vessel was accelerating directly toward his remaining ships. "They're insane!" he breathed. "No, sir," his science officer replied quietly. "They're determined. And, sir, there's something else you need to know. I've been monitoring their internal communications throughout the battle. This isn't their entire fleet. They're referring to other ships under construction, multiple vessels, using the same hybrid technology." Thexna 9 felt the universe spinning around him like a broken gyroscope. The humans hadn't just built one ship from his crashed vessel. They were building an entire fleet of ships that were superior to anything the Zephyrian Republic possessed. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human vessel," his communication officer reported weakly. "Put it through." Commander Jang appeared on the screen again. Her ship's bridge was filled with smoke, and sparks flew from damaged equipment, but her expression remained calm and confident, as if the outcome had never been in doubt. "Admiral Thex 9, she said formally, "I am prepared to accept your surrender and discuss terms for the repatriation of your surviving crew members." "Surrender," Thex 9 could barely force the word out. "You're demanding that I surrender to you. Admiral, you have 3 damaged ships remaining in your fleet. I have 1 ship and 12 platforms, all still fully operational. The mathematics are quite simple." "But we are Zephyrians," Thexton protested weakly. "We are an advanced species. And CI. You are primitives who barely understand the technology you're using." Commander Jang's expression became cold as interstellar space. "Admiral, let me explain something to you that you clearly don't understand. 3 years ago, we were primitives. We couldn't travel between stars. We barely comprehended how your technology worked. But we learned. We adapted. We improved everything you left behind." She gestured to her damaged bridge around her. "This ship isn't just your old vessel repaired. It's your technology combined with human engineering and human determination. It's stronger, faster, and more powerful than anything you ever built because we made it better." "That's impossible," Thex 9 whispered. "Is it?" Commander Yang leaned forward in her chair. "Look around you, Admiral. Look at what we've accomplished in 3 years. You gave us a gift when you abandoned that broken ship on our world. You taught us that we weren't alone in the galaxy. You showed us that there were species out here with technology we could barely imagine." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "But you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that having advanced technology made you superior to us. You never considered that we might take your technology and make it better. You never imagined that we might become something you never expected." Admiral Thex 9 stared at the human female on his screen, watching everything he had believed about the natural order of the galaxy crumbling around him, like a structure built on sand. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want you to take a message back to your people." Commander Yang replied, "Tell them that Earth is under human protection now. Tell them that we're not the primitives you remember. And tell them that if they come here again with hostile intentions, they'll face consequences they can't imagine." "And if I refuse?" Commander Jang smiled again, and Thex 9E Heisiyir Fortreat realized it was the most terrifying expression he had ever seen. "Then you won't be taking any messages anywhere, Admiral." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the massive chamber that floated in space between 12 star systems, all trying to understand the impossible reports coming from a small yellow star on the edge of known space. Ambassador Vel 8 of the Zephyrian Republic stood before the assembled delegates, his forearms trembling as he delivered the most humiliating report in his species' history. "Honored delegates," he began, "I must inform the Council of a development in the Sol system. The primitive species known as humans have somehow acquired faster than light technology." The chamber filled with sounds of disbelief, clicking, chirping, and whistling echoing through the vast space. "How is this possible?" demanded a delegate from the Alaran Empire. "Our records show humans have not achieved interstellar travel. 3 years ago, one of our ships crashed on their world," Vel-8 replied quietly. "The crew was rescued, but the vessel was left behind." "And they repaired it?" asked a delegate from the Crystalline Confederation. "Worse," Vel-8 said. "They improved it." The chamber erupted in noise as hundreds of delegates expressed their disbelief. The council speaker, an ancient being whose species had forgotten their original name, commanded silence. "Explain how primitives could improve Zephyrian technology." Vel-8 activated a holographic display showing the battle between Admiral Thex-9's fleet and Terra's wrath. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the human ship destroyed 9 Zephyrian vessels in minutes. "As you can see," Vel-8 said, "the humans did not simply repair our technology. They combined it with their own innovations to create something entirely new." "This is disturbing," the speaker said. "How do we respond?" Before Vel-8 could answer, another voice spoke from the chamber's communication system. "I'm afraid that won't be possible." Every delegate turned to look at the main screen. A human female in a crisp military uniform looked back at them. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force," the human said calmly. "I believe you were discussing my species." The chamber erupted in chaos. How had a primitive species hacked into the most secure communication system in the galaxy? "Your quantum encryption is based on mathematics we mastered 6 months ago," Captain Chen replied. "We've been monitoring this meeting since it began. Earth formally requests membership in the Galactic Council." "Membership?" The speaker's voice carried tones of disbelief. "You have been a spacefaring species for less than 4 years. 3 years and 7 months to be exact," Captain Chen corrected. "But in that time, we have developed technology that exceeds most council member species. We have defended our territory against unprovoked attack." "You destroyed 9 of our ships," Vel-8 shouted. "You attacked us without provocation," Captain Chen replied coolly. "We defended ourselves." The speaker studied the human on the screen. In his thousands of years of life, he had seen many species make first contact with the galactic community, but none had ever arrived with such confidence. "Earth's application will be considered," the speaker said, "but first you must submit to evaluation procedures. The process normally takes several years." "I'm afraid we don't have several years," Captain Chen said. "Our sensors have detected a large fleet moving toward our territory. According to our analysis, they belong to the Craven Collective." The chamber fell silent. Every species in the galaxy feared the Craven, a warrior race that had conquered worlds and enslaved civilizations for centuries. "A fleet of approximately 50 ships," Captain Chen confirmed. "They should arrive within days." "Then you are doomed," Vel-8 said with satisfaction. "The Craven have never been defeated." Captain Chen smiled, and something about that expression made every delegate uncomfortable. "We'll see about that," she said. The communication ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Finally, the speaker addressed the chamber. "I believe we should send observers to the Sol system," he announced. "If the humans somehow survive contact with the Craven, we may need to reconsider everything we know about warfare." 3 days later, the Craven fleet arrived. War Leader Gorth Prime stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, studying sensor readings that showed 5 human ships in defensive formation around their homeworld. 5 ships. Gorth Prime laughed a sound like grinding metal. They think 5 ships can stand against the might of the Craven. But as his fleet of 50 ships moved deeper into the system, something unexpected happened. The human ships suddenly spread out in directions that made no tactical sense, moving in complex patterns like a dance. "What are they doing?" Gorth Prime demanded. "Unknown War Leader. Their movement patterns don't match any known military doctrine." The Craven fleet moved into their standard attack formation, a pattern that had conquered 100 worlds. But when they opened fire, the humans returned with weapons that manipulated gravitational fields, twisting Craven ships into impossible shapes before tearing them apart. The human ships moved through the Craven fleet like dancers appearing in one location and instantly jumping to another. Their weapons struck from impossible angles and their shields grew stronger under fire. Within 30 minutes, the mighty Craven fleet was reduced to wreckage. Gorth Prime found himself alone on his crippled flagship, staring at tactical displays that showed 50 ships destroyed by 5 human vessels. War Leader. His communication officer called weakly, "The humans are hailing us." Captain Chen appeared on the screen, her bridge showing no signs of damage. "War Leader Gorth Prime," she said formally, "I am prepared to accept your surrender." "The Craven do not surrender," Gorth Prime snarled. "Then you die," Captain Chen replied simply. "Your choice." Gorth Prime looked around his ruined bridge, his fleet destroyed, his worldview shattered. I surrender," he whispered. News of the Craven defeat spread across the galaxy within hours. The species that had terrorized civilizations for centuries had been annihilated by a race most considered primitive. In the Galactic Council chamber, the speaker called an emergency session. "The humans have accomplished something that has never been done before," he announced. "They have completely defeated a Craven fleet without losing a single ship." The chamber was silent as delegates processed this information. Furthermore, the speaker continued, "Our observers report that the human fleet consisted of only 5 ships. They defeated 50 Craven vessels and took no casualties." Vel 8 of the Zephyrian Republic stood shakily. "Honored Speaker, the Zephyrian Republic formally withdraws its claim to the technology found by the humans. We recognize Earth's right to that technology and would like to open formal diplomatic relations." The speaker nodded. "The Council hereby grants Earth full membership status effective immediately. Captain Chen, please respond." The communication screen activated, showing Captain Chen on her bridge. Behind her stood representatives from all 5 human ships. "Honored Speaker, Captain Chen said, "Earth accepts membership in the Galactic Council, but we want to make something clear. These ships represent only the beginning of human space capability. We currently have 20 more vessels under construction, each more advanced than the last." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. "More importantly," Captain Chen continued, "we want the galaxy to know that Earth stands ready to defend any Council member species against aggression. The age of conquest and slavery is over. Any species that threatens peaceful development will answer to the Earth Defense Force." The speaker studied the human captain. "You would use your advanced technology to protect others." "That's what civilized species do," Captain Chen replied. "They protect those who cannot protect themselves. They stand against aggression and oppression. They work together to build a better galaxy for all species." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried across the galaxy to every listening species. "The galaxy has a new guardian now, and we will not allow the strong to prey upon the weak ever again." As the communication ended, the speaker looked around the chamber at hundreds of delegates. The balance of power had just shifted permanently. Humanity had arrived among the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors. They had taken abandoned alien technology and forged it into something greater than its creators had ever imagined. The galactic war that had raged for centuries was finally over, not through conquest, but through the emergence of a species that refused to let might make right. "Doctor?" Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Terra's Wrath, looking out at Earth below. The blue marble that had once seemed so isolated was now the center of a new galactic civilization. Human technology was spreading to allied species, always freely given, never forced. The ship around her hummed with power that came from both human innovation and alien wisdom combined. In the engineering sections, hybrid computers calculated jump coordinates to distant star systems. In the medical bays, devices that merged human understanding with alien science healed injuries that would have been fatal just years before. "Dr. Chen," Commander Zhang said, approaching with a communication pad. "We're receiving requests for protection from 17 different star systems. The Alaran Empire wants to know if we can help them rebuild after Craven occupation. The Crystalline Confederation is asking for assistance with their defense platforms." Sarah smiled. This was exactly what she had hoped for when she first stood in that crashed alien ship years ago. Humanity hadn't just proven they belonged among the stars, they had shown the galaxy what it meant to use power responsibly. "Tell them yes," she said. "All of them. That's what we're here for." The greatest sci-fi stories always told of species that rose above their limitations through courage and determination. Now humanity was writing their own chapter in that grand narrative, proving that the most dangerous force in the universe wasn't superior technology or overwhelming numbers. It was a species that refused to accept that anything was impossible. In the years that followed, children across the galaxy would learn about the day humans turned abandoned wreckage into absolute retribution, not against their enemies, but against the very idea that any species was too primitive to reach for the stars. The aliens had indeed given humanity their ultimate weapon. They just never realized that the weapon wasn't the ship they left behind. It was the human spirit that refused to know its place. If this story of human determination against impossible odds inspired you, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic tales of civilizations that dared to dream beyond their limits. Share this with someone who needs to remember that no challenge is too great when we refuse to give up. The universe is vast, but human courage is infinite. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars.